I am happy to report that I got to pass my DELE C1 exam for Spanish last year, but there are a lot of things that I would have changed if I could start over this year and learn Spanish from zero, which I'm going to show you in this video. The very first thing is that I wish I had asked for more help. There are just so many expectations that we put on ourselves as language learners, whether that came from our background as really high academic achievers or being perfectionists, all the way into if we had learned a language previously and it went really well, and so now we expect that the same methods, the same strategies, the same journey is going to apply to the next language that we learn. And this was my case for when I learned Italian to fluency before turning to Spanish. I had learned Italian pretty fast, and I had also done it by myself. And that gave me then the expectation of none of my progress is ever going to count for Spanish if I do not do it all by myself. And having this belief always hanging over my head was super damaging. And when I actually really wanted to get help, I held myself back. I know that it's been about a year since I took the exam, and honestly, I haven't spoken a lot of Spanish in between when I got my certificate and now. So what I'm doing for this year and reaching out for the help that I wish I had had previously for Spanish is turn to actually my favorite language learning platform called italki, which is the sponsor of today's video. Now, for those who do not know what italki is, it is an online language learning platform that offers one-on-one personalized lessons with native teachers. Now, in my case, even though I have achieved a pretty advanced level in Spanish, it's really hard to even maintain that level when I miss out constantly on real, authentic conversations, simply because there is no one around me to actively speak with. And at a high level, I need feedback from a native speaker who's supportive and knows how to correct more nuanced mistakes, plus keeps me engaged at my level while giving me a safe space to learn. And especially from my own experience learning various languages, I've always found italki to be the best platform for those constructive, personalized lessons that have truly transformed the way that I learn. And not only can I receive real-time guidance and feedback to speak more and refresh Spanish, I can also choose from a wide range of language experts to find the most flexible times that fit my own availability, as well as the most affordable rates that fit my personal budget, choosing to pay either per whole package or per lesson. Now here is a sneak peek into my most recent lesson with Spanish with one of the wonderful teachers on italki.
Soy de Cuba, de La Habana.
Ah, ok.
Ya desde 2015 vivo en España.
Mm-hmm.
Hay palabras como cubanas, por ejemplo, espejuelos.
Oh, es muy diferente.
Entonces, es una palabra que si dices aquí, nadie asocia con las gafas.
The platform layout of italki is also very user-friendly. I love its interface because it's easy and simple to use, and because there's such a huge range of languages, I've used this platform for almost a decade, not only for Spanish, but for 7 other languages and counting. It really doesn't matter if I'm still a total beginner or advanced. I find that there is really a teacher for everyone. Now, after taking the DELE exam and then taking a break from the language, I found myself coming back speaking more academically and a little bit less naturally. And honestly, working with my teacher on italki this week has helped me gain confidence in speaking again, but also reorient how I speak Spanish in more authentic conversations. Plus, I am happy to report I do have a Spanish trip coming up this fall. I'm going to visit some of my friends that I met abroad while we were studying in Germany, but they are native Spanish speakers. So this is all the more reason to start refreshing the language right now. If you would also like to speak more authentically in Spanish conversations or want to refresh your Spanish after a break, you can buy $10 and get $5 off your first lesson using my exclusive promo code Adoptee4. Make sure to click the link in the description and also hurry because these discounts are only available to the first 50 users who sign up and purchase their first lessons. The next thing that I would do, besides asking for help earlier, to learn Spanish would be having active comparison time between similar languages to Spanish. I think there's a misconception of thinking that once we learn a new language, there is an automatic slot that our brains make for that specific language, and then it compartmentalizes each language into its own space in our heads, which is also not true. It actually puts everything that we know about language into one place, which also can tend to lead up to mixing up different languages. And I know that this is something that we're taught to fear as language learners, mixing up languages, no matter if they are similar or different, but especially if they're similar. And because of the way that our brains don't compartmentalize each individual language, but rather group them all together, that is all the more reason to add specific comparison time. And I wish I had done more of this through what I like to call microjournaling. So just do a few sentences, write down and summarize what I had learned from maybe a Spanish lesson, and then try to write the same thing in Italian, and then get both of those checked and see the differences and similarities. It would have really helped me actively produce the language, but also be able to understand the nuances of how, even though the grammar structure and the vocabulary are similar, how they can also stand apart as their own languages, kind of with their own personalities too. And to reiterate this comparison time even more, I wish I had bought a textbook that was made for Italian native speakers who were trying to learn Spanish, because at this point, I love language stacking. And when I started to go into Spanish, it didn't really occur to me that I could do something like that. But because I was already fluent in Italian, I wish I had taken more advantage of that and been able to essentially hit two birds with one stone and reiterate what I already knew from Italian and listen to all the instructions and all the grammar explanations and translations with all the exercises in a textbook that is made for Italians, all to learn Spanish. The next thing that I would do over if I could learn Spanish, again from zero, I wouldn't have let the question of which is the most right type of Spanish to start out with prevent me from starting the language sooner. The result of having this ever-present question in my head led me to start Spanish a year later than I probably would have if I didn't let this question hold me back. Even before we start something in our language learning, whether we are trying to decide on the right sort of accent, the right resources, even when we're in the middle of the language journey and we're like, I don't know if I'm doing this quote unquote the right way, there's so many things that hold us back. And I wish that I just realized and come to terms with the fact that the diversity within all of these Spanish-speaking countries and all the cultures involved, and therefore all of the different types of Spanish involved, was something to be really positive about and something to be able to get excited about as I started my Spanish journey, instead of overwhelmingly feeling that I would fail if I did like the wrong type of Spanish, quote unquote. There was simply just, again, a lot of procrastination from starting, and I had a lot of decision fatigue going into my Spanish learning journey already, which didn't feel great, didn't feel that welcoming, and definitely didn't fuel my curiosity for wanting to move forward with the language automatically. And anyways, I mean, really with whatever type of Spanish you start out with, you are going to learn the same fundamentals. Whether you start with Peruvian Spanish or you start with Spain Spanish or Mexican Spanish, I mean, they all have to know how to say hello, how are you, what do you like to do, etc. And naturally, as you progress in your language journey, you're going to get even more exposure to different accents over time. Honestly, I didn't get exposed to Peruvian Spanish, Colombian Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish until I was about a B2 or C1. And even before that, I first started just with Spain Spanish, just because that's what my textbook that I had bought on a whim started me out with, but then switched to Mexican Spanish because I liked the culture in Mexico more and I liked the sound of it more as well. So simply just pick one that you like and start with it. The next thing I wish I had done is learn more through writing and reading. Now, I did a lot of listening and speaking, and I fell into the same trap of believing that working on two isolated skills would automatically passively improve other skills that I wasn't such a fan of. So it was something that I realized that a lot of language learners also fall into. If we are facing some kind of barrier, or we just don't want to do something in our language learning, whether that be an overall skill or just a resource that we know would help us, but we keep on avoiding it anyways, assuming that doing everything else around what we need to fix that would really help us improve in our language keeps on being avoided by working around it. And that was definitely something that I would have done over and would have tried to integrate more into my overall language learning. I talk to a lot of the language learners that I coach about language learning being an ecosystem. So one part that is strengthened or weakened is going to influence, depending on what exactly that skill is, the other parts in the ecosystem. And the reality is we just never learn languages in an isolated way. Everything just beautifully coexists with one another. It builds off of one another. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did find this video helpful. Also, write me down in the comments below because I'm curious to see what you would do over if you are already on your Spanish learning journey. We'll see each other in another video very soon.